Remember what I told you, right?
Yeah,
What I said?
it's grown man business.
I want to say something about my mama. Your mama. Your mama. Go dig her up. Go dig her up. Post a picture of your mama. She pay respect. Stop playing with my mama.
Nobody was ready for this timeline detonation. 1 minute it's a regular scroll. The next minute King Harris allegedly dropped shocking files. And suddenly 50 Cent's team isn't just responding. They're firing back like it's the final round of a heavyweight title fight. And when I say firing back, I mean the kind of energy that makes group chats go silent and Twitter fingers start stretching. Because let's be honest, anything involving 50 Cent never stays small. This is a man who treats social media like a strategic battlefield. So when alleged leaks start floating around with his name attached, you already know calm is not on the menu. The response, swift. Calculated, loud enough to echo across every blog headline by sunrise. But here's where it gets messy. What exactly was in those so-called files? Why did King Harris decide now was the time to drop them? And why does this whole situation feel like a reality show reunion episode that nobody warned us about? Was this exposure? Was this clout chasing? Or was this a chess move gone wrong? Because what unfolded next didn't just spark reactions, it triggered a digital war. And trust me, once 50's camp stepped in, the temperature didn't just rise. The second King Harris hinted at shocking files, the timeline didn't just react, it braced itself. Because when you attach 50 Cent's name to anything remotely scandalous, you're not tossing a pebble into a pond. You're lighting a fuse and walking away slowly. And that's exactly how this felt. Now let's rewind for context. 50 Cent has built an empire not just off music and business, but off strategic pettiness that somehow always lands like marketing genius. He doesn't just respond to controversy, he weaponizes it. He flips it, he turns it into content. So when whispers started circulating that King Harris had leaked humiliating information tied to 50's circle, people didn't just gasp, they refreshed their feeds aggressively. King Harris, never one to shy away from a bold move, appeared to position himself like he had receipts, not vague accusations, not subliminal shots. Files, that word alone carries weight. Files sounds official. It sounds organized. It sounds like someone opened a digital vault and decided today was chaos day. The internet immediately split into camps. One side shouted, "Expose everything." The other side said, "You better be ready for what comes next." Because here's the thing about going public with alleged leaks involving someone like 50. You don't just press upload and walk away peacefully. You step into a digital arena. And step in he did. The first reactions were pure adrenaline. Blogs ran with headlines dripping in drama. Reaction channels popped up within hours dissecting every line, every screenshot, every supposed detail. Even people who had no idea what the files allegedly contained were suddenly experts on the situation. But here's the twist: clarity was scarce. The so-called files were referenced, discussed, analyzed, but concrete confirmation limited. That didn't stop speculation from running marathons. Some viewers believed King Harris was exposing hypocrisy. Others thought it was a clout-chasing masterclass. Because in today's internet economy, attention is currency. And nothing prints attention faster than attaching yourself to 50 Cent controversy. Then came the real shift. 50 Cent's team responded. Nod. Quietly, not with a soft PR statement buried in fine print. The reaction was sharp, strategic, and laced with that unmistakable tone that says, "You picked the wrong opponent." Instead of looking rattled, the camp appeared almost amused, which somehow made the situation feel more dangerous. Because when a seasoned figure in public battles doesn't panic, you know a counterpunch is loading. Supporters of 50 immediately framed the alleged leaks as desperate. This feels like a reach. One comment read, others accused King Harris of trying to insert himself into a narrative that didn't need him. The phrase clout move trended in multiple threads. Meanwhile, supporters of King Harris insisted he was bold for stepping forward. They argued that challenging a powerful figure takes nerve, and nerve in internet culture is often mistaken for credibility. But here's what made the tension climb. History. The public already knows that 50 Cent doesn't let things slide. He doesn't issue polite corrections and retreat. He responds with memes, captions, and commentary sharp enough to slice through reputations. So when his team fired back, people weren't just watching for defense, they were anticipating offense. And the tone of that response, calm but cutting. It didn't scream, it didn't beg. It subtly questioned motives, it suggested inconsistencies. It hinted that the so-called files weren't the bombshell they were being advertised as, and in doing so, it shifted the narrative. Suddenly, the focus wasn't just on what was allegedly leaked. It was on why it was leaked. Timing became a headline. Motivation became a debate. Was this retaliation? Was this relevance chasing? Or was this a genuine attempt to expose something bigger? Every platform had a different theory. TikTok analysts created timelines, Twitter threads broke down possible connections. YouTube commentators declared it the beginning of something bigger. Dramatic, absolutely. But drama fuels engagement. And engagement was skyrocketing. The phrase 50's team fires back became its own mini headline, not because of explosive language, but because of controlled confidence. There's something unsettling about a response that doesn't overreact. It's like watching a seasoned fighter smirk before throwing a punch. By the end of the first wave, one thing was clear. This wasn't a clean exposure narrative. It was a messy standoff, a clash of credibility versus power, alleged files versus established influence. King Harris had made noise. 50 Cent's camp had responded with precision. And the internet, it was eating every second of it. Because this isn't just about documents or digital screenshots. It's about dominance in the public arena. It's about who controls the narrative when allegations fly. And as the temperature rose, one uncomfortable question lingered in the background. If this is how the first exchange unfolded, what happens when the second round hits? Because with someone like 50 Cent involved, the opening move is never the final one. If the first exchange felt tense, the second wave felt strategic. Because once 50 Cent's team fired back, the tone of the entire conversation shifted. It was no longer did King Harris leak something shocking, it became did he miscalculate who he was dealing with? And that question hit harder than any alleged file. The response from 50's side wasn't chaotic, it wasn't frantic, it was sharp, controlled, and laced with that signature confidence that says, "We've seen worse." Instead of scrambling, they leaned in. Instead of denying dramatically, they subtly dismantled the narrative piece by piece. That's when the internet really woke up. Memes exploded across timelines comparing King Harris' move to poking a sleeping lion with a selfie stick. Others joked that going after 50 Cent online is like challenging a chess grandmaster with checkers logic. Harsh, maybe viral, absolutely. Reaction channels started splitting into two camps. One group argued that King Harris was brave for challenging someone with influence and resources. The other group insisted he had underestimated the response power of a team built for digital warfare. And here's where it got layered. The so-called files began to lose their shock value as counter-narratives surfaced. Supporters of 50 questioned the authenticity, context, and timing. They pointed out inconsistencies. They highlighted gaps. They asked uncomfortable questions. Suddenly, the leak didn't look like a bomb. It looked like a spark trying to start. A wildfire that wouldn't hatch. But King Harris didn't retreat. Instead of fading into silence, he appeared to double down, whether through subtle posts, indirect commentary, or letting the conversation breathe without backing off. And that persistence added fuel. Because once someone doubles down, the audience smells escalation. The temperature climbed again. Celebrity commentators chimed in without naming sides directly. You know the vibe, cryptic posts about choosing your battles wisely and understanding who you're up against. No direct tags, but the subtext was screaming. Then came the analytics crowd. Threads started breaking down engagement. Numbers like this was a stock market battle. Who gained followers? Who trended longer? who controlled the headlines. In 2026, even drama gets measured in metrics. What made this second wave fascinating was how quickly the narrative became about strategy rather than substance. It wasn't just about what was allegedly leaked. It was about power positioning, about influence, about who dictates the public perception when accusations start flying. 5% has built a brand around calculated online presence. He doesn't stumble into chaos, he monetizes it. So when his team appeared unshaken, critics of King Harris began questioning whether the leak had backfired. Memes intensified. One viral post compared the situation to throwing a water balloon at a fortress. Another joked that King Harris walked into a verbal boxing ring wearing flip-flops. The exaggeration was comedic, but the message was clear. The internet was sensing imbalance. At the same time, supporters of King Harris argued that even forcing a response was a win. They claimed that getting 50's team to react meant the leak had impact, and in the attention economy, impact equals relevance. So now the battle wasn't just about truth. It was about optics. And optics are slippery, because while some viewers believed King Harris had stirred the pot successfully, others believed he had triggered a machine designed to outmaneuver opponents effortlessly. Then came the speculation phase. Would 50 Cent respond personally? Would there be a live session? Would this escalate into something louder? The anticipation alone kept engagement climbing. The audience wasn't just watching, they were waiting. Waiting created suspense. And suspense feeds drama. The second wave revealed something crucial. This wasn't about documents anymore. It was about dominance in narrative control. King Harris made noise. 50's team reframed it. The public decided which version felt stronger. And at this point, perception was tilting, not because of confirmed facts, but because of response energy, confidence versus confrontation. Precision versus provocation. As the digital battlefield cooled slightly, one truth became unavoidable. When you challenge a figure known for strategic retaliation, you better have airtight ammunition, because if your evidence wobbles even slightly, the counterattack won't just defend. It will reposition, and that repositioning is exactly what appeared to happen. By the end of the second phase, the shock factor had dulled, but the tension hadn't disappeared. It transformed into anticipation. The internet wasn't screaming anymore. It was watching carefully. By the time the third phase rolled in, the chaos wasn't loud anymore. It was calculated. The screaming headlines faded. But the power shift lingered, because when the smoke clears in a public battle, what matters isn't who yelled the most, it's who controls the aftermath. And right now, that's the real conversation. King Harris made a bold move. He stepped into a spotlight that doesn't just shine. It interrogates. The alleged files, the shock value, the initial buzz, all of that created noise. But noise doesn't automatically equal victory, especially when the opponent thrives in digital warfare. 50 Cent's team didn't overreact. They didn't spiral. They reframed, and that reframing quietly changed the energy of the entire situation. Instead of defending aggressively, they projected confidence. And confidence in a public clash often reads as dominance. The narrative began tilting. Supporters of King Harris tried to keep the momentum alive. They argued that speaking up against a powerful figure is always risky, and risk deserves respect. They claimed the leak forced accountability, or at the very least forced acknowledgement, but critics weren't buying that interpretation. They suggested that without overwhelming proof or undeniable impact, the move felt premature. That in trying to expose something explosive, King Harris may have underestimated how quickly narratives can be flipped by someone with media mastery, and that's where reputation enters the chat. 50 Cent has spent years crafting a persona that blends humor, intimidation, and strategic timing. He doesn't just respond, he calculates. So when his camp weathered the storm without visible damage, many viewers interpreted that as resilience. Resilience reads like strength online. Meanwhile, King Harris found himself under heavier scrutiny than before, not necessarily condemned, but questioned, motivations dissected, timing analyzed, support weighed against skepticism. Because once you step forward with shocking files, the expectation is nuclear fallout. If the fallout doesn't match the headline, people start side-eyeing the source. And that's the delicate balance of public exposure culture. Boldness can win attention, but sustainability requires precision. By this stage, the conversation had shifted from what was leaked to who handled this better. Engagement metrics, follower counts, comment ratios, everything became part of the scorecard. The internet loves a winner, and it often decides that winner based on posture, not proof. If one side appears rattled, they lose narrative control. If the other side looks steady, they gain it. In this situation, steadiness seemed to prevail. But here's the twist. Silence can be strategic. Neither side escalated into a screaming match. No extended back-and-forth spirals, no dramatic public breakdowns, and that restraint left the door slightly open because unresolved tension fuels anticipation. Some viewers believe this chapter is closed, others think it's simply paused. In celebrity culture, pauses are rarely permanent. They're intermissions. The bigger impact might not be immediate headlines, but future positioning. King Harris now carries the reputation of someone willing to challenge bigger names. That can build a certain brand bold, unafraid, disruptive. But it also raises expectations for future moves. If you swing big once, people expect the next swing to be bigger. As for 50 Cent's team, this situation reinforced their image as composed under pressure. It sent a subtle message: challenges won't rattle the foundation, and that perception strengthens influence. But influence doesn't mean invincibility. The internet never forgets, it archives. It revisits, it reinterprets. Today's resolved. Drama can resurface tomorrow with new context, and if additional information ever emerges, the entire narrative could flip again. That's the volatility of digital fame. What feels like dominance today can feel vulnerable tomorrow. So where does this leave things? In a state of tension without explosion. In a standoff where both sides gained something and risked something. In a narrative that feels finished, but not fully sealed. Because in high-profile conflicts, nothing truly ends with a single exchange. It evolves, and evolution is unpredictable. If King Harris chooses to escalate further, the temperature could spike instantly. If 50 Cent himself steps in personally, that's an entirely different level of spectacle. But if both sides remain composed, then this moment becomes a lesson in optics. A reminder that in the age of social media, battles aren't always won with louder voices. They're often won with better posture, and right now, the internet is watching closely. Because when power, pride, and public perception collide, the calm before the next storm can be threatened. Now I've got one question for you. Who really won this round? Was King Harris bold for stepping into the fire? Or did 50 Cent's team prove once again that you don't poke a media mastermind without expecting a counterstrike? Because let's be honest, this wasn't just about files. This was about power, posture, and who controls the narrative when the spotlight gets hot. Drop your real thoughts in the comments. Not the safe takes, not that they're both wrong energy. I want to know, was this exposure or miscalculation, strategy or stunt? Who handled it better when the pressure hit? If you enjoy these deep dives into celebrity chess matches, viral clashes, and headline hurricanes that flip faster than a reality show plot twist, go ahead and smash that like button like it owes you money. Subscribe so you don't miss the next digital detonation. Because trust me, in this industry, silence today can turn into chaos tomorrow. Around here, we don't just watch the drama. We break down the moves. We decode the energy. We track the blueprint. This is Fame Blueprint, and the next move is always loading.